Tamara Johnson stood before the imposing gates of Westfield University, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The crisp autumn air nipped at her cheeks as she adjusted the strap of her worn backpack, filled with dreams and inventions that could change the world. At just 18 years old, Tamara had already filed 3 patents for her groundbreaking clean energy devices. But to the outside world, she was just another black girl from the inner city. As she approached the admissions office, Tamara couldn't help but notice the sea of predominantly white faces that surrounded her. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she belonged here just as much as anyone else. Her fingers traced the edges of the application folder in her hands, a portfolio bursting with academic achievements and innovative ideas that would make any university proud. "Next," called out a bored-looking receptionist, barely glancing up from her computer screen. Tamara stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Good morning. I'm here to submit my application and meet with Dean Whitmore about the exceptional student program." The receptionist's eyes flicked up, widening slightly as they took in Tamara's appearance. A flicker of something, surprise, doubt, crossed her face before she schooled her features into a neutral expression. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes, I do." "Tamara Johnson, 10:30 a.m. After a moment of tapping at her keyboard, the receptionist nodded curtly. "Take a seat. The dean will be with you shortly." Tamara settled into an uncomfortable plastic chair, her mind racing through the presentation she had prepared. She had spent months perfecting her pitch, knowing that this meeting could be the key to unlocking doors that had long been closed to people who looked like her. 30 minutes ticked by, then 45. Tamara watched as other students, all white, were ushered into the dean's office ahead of her, some without appointments. She gritted her teeth, recognizing the all-too-familiar sting of discrimination. But she wouldn't let it deter her. She had faced worse obstacles and come out stronger. Finally, after nearly an hour of waiting, Dean Whitmore's door opened. A tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit emerged, his eyes skimming past Tamara as if she were invisible. "Is there anyone else waiting to see me?" he asked the receptionist. Tamara stood up, clearing her throat. "Excuse me, Dean Whitmore. I'm Tamara Johnson. I had an appointment at 10:30. The dean turned, surprise etching his features as he took in Tamara's appearance. His lips tightened into a thin line. "Ah, yes, Ms. Johnson. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. The exceptional student program is quite competitive, and we typically only consider students from more established backgrounds." Tamara felt a familiar anger bubbling up inside her, but she pushed it down. She had dealt with people like Dean Whitmore before, and she knew that losing her cool would only reinforce the stereotypes he clearly believed in. Instead, she squared her shoulders and met his gaze directly. "With all due respect, Dean Whitmore, my background is precisely what makes me exceptional. I've overcome numerous obstacles to achieve a 4.0 GPA, perfect SAT scores, and I've already filed 3 patents for clean energy inventions. I believe I'm exactly the kind of student your program is looking for." The dean's expression wavered for a moment, a mix of surprise and skepticism crossing his face, but then his features hardened once more. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Ms. Johnson, but I'm afraid our decision is final. The exceptional student program has already selected its candidates for this year. Perhaps you might consider a community college that's more suitable for your situation." The words hit Tamara like a physical blow. She had heard similar dismissals before, but never so blatantly from someone in a position of power. For a moment, she considered walking away, accepting defeat as she had been conditioned to do so many times before. But something inside her snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and determination surged to the surface. Tamara took a step closer to the dean, her voice low but intense. "My situation, as you put it, Dean Whitmore, is that of a brilliant young scientist who has already contributed more to her field than many of your current students ever will. If you can't see past the color of my skin to recognize that, then perhaps it's your institution that isn't suitable for the future of innovation." The dean's face flushed red, a mixture of anger and embarrassment coloring his cheeks. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a new voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" Tamara turned to see a woman approaching, her sharp eyes taking in the scene before her. Dr. Eliza Chen, the head of Westfield's engineering department, had a reputation for being both brilliant and fair-minded. She looked from Tamara to the dean, her brow furrowing in concern. Dean Whitmore straightened his tie, composing himself. Dr. Chen, I was just explaining to Ms. Johnson here that our exceptional student program is not the right fit for her background. Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed. And what background would that be, exactly? She turned to Tamara. Young lady, may I ask what brings you to Westfield today? Tamara took a deep breath, seizing the opportunity. Dr. Chen, I'm here to apply for the exceptional student program. I've developed a series of clean energy inventions that I believe could revolutionize the field. I was hoping to present my work, but it seems the dean has already made his decision based on other factors. Dr. Chen's eyebrows shot up. She held out her hand. May I see your application? As Tamara handed over her portfolio, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone would finally see her for her mind rather than her appearance. Dr. Chen flipped through the pages, her eyes widening with each turn. She looked up at Tamara, then at Dean Whitmore, her expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Dean, do you realize what we have here? This young woman's work on solar energy storage could solve problems we've been grappling with for years. The dean shifted uncomfortably, clearly caught off guard. Well, I'm sure it's very impressive, but our program has certain standards. Standards? Dr. Chen interrupted, her voice sharp. If our standards don't include brilliant innovations that could change the world, then perhaps we need to reevaluate them. She turned to Tamara, a smile breaking across her face. Ms. Johnson, I would be honored if you would consider joining our program. In fact, I'd like to offer you a full scholarship on the spot. Tamara felt dizzy with disbelief. After years of closed doors and dismissive looks, someone was finally seeing her true potential. She glanced at Dean Whitmore, whose face had drained of color, then back to Dr. Chen's encouraging smile. Thank you, Dr. Chen, Tamara said, her voice thick with emotion. I would be honored to accept. As Dr. Chen began to discuss the details of the program, Tamara couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. She had faced discrimination head-on and come out victorious, but more importantly, she had taken a step toward changing the system from within. Dean Whitmore cleared his throat, attempting to regain control of the situation. Now, hold on a moment. Dr. Chen, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, there are procedures we must follow. We can't simply... Dr. Chen cut him off with a sharp look. Dean Whitmore, I suggest you take a moment to reflect on the biases that almost cost this university a brilliant mind. Ms. Johnson, she turned back to Tamara, why don't we continue this discussion in my office? I'm eager to hear more about your inventions. As Tamara followed Dr. Chen down the hallway, leaving a sputtering Dean Whitmore behind, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief, pride, and a burning determination to prove herself flooded through her. She knew this was just the beginning of her journey, but for the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. Dr. Chen paused at her office door, turning to Tamara with a serious expression. Miss Johnson, I want you to know that what happened today is unacceptable, but unfortunately not uncommon. Your journey here will not be easy, but I believe you have the strength and brilliance to overcome any obstacle. Are you ready for the challenges ahead? Tamara met Dr. Chen's gaze, her chin held high. Dr. Chen, I've been ready my entire life. This is just the next step in changing the world, one invention at a time. With a nod of approval, Dr. Chen opened her office door. Then let's get started, shall we? As Tamara stepped into the office, she knew that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for her, but for every young person of color who dared to dream beyond the limitations society tried to impose on them. She was ready to prove that genius knows no color and that true innovation comes from diversity of thought and experience. The door closed behind them, leaving Dean Whitmore alone in the hallway, forced to confront the consequences of his prejudice and the changing tide of progress that would no longer be held back. As the door closed behind them, Dr. Chen gestured for Tamara to take a seat. Now, Mrs. Johnson, tell me more about these inventions of yours. I'm particularly intrigued by your work on solar energy storage. Tamara leaned forward, her eyes lighting up with passion. Well, Dr. Chen, it all started when I noticed how much energy was being wasted in traditional solar panel systems. As Tamara launched into her explanation, Dr. Chen listened intently, her expression growing more impressed by the minute. The young inventor's ideas were not just innovative, they were revolutionary. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Dean Whitmore stood frozen, his mind reeling from what had just transpired. He had always prided himself on being fair and objective, but the events of the past hour had forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth about himself. Had he really been about to turn away a potential genius simply because of her race? The dean's reverie was interrupted by the arrival of his assistant, a young man named Jake. "Sir, is everything all right? You look a bit pale." Whitmore shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. "Jake, I need you to pull up all the information we have on the exceptional student program, particularly the demographics of our accepted students over the past 5 years." Jake looked confused but nodded. "Of course, most sir. May I ask why?" The dean sighed heavily. "Because, Jake, I think we may have a serious problem on our hands." Back in Dr. Chen's office, Tamara was wrapping up her presentation. She had walked the professor through her designs for a new type of battery that could store solar energy more efficiently than anything currently on the market. Dr. Chen sat back in her chair, a look of amazement on her face. "Tamara, this is extraordinary. With this technology, we could revolutionize the renewable energy sector. But I have to ask, how did you manage to develop all this on your own?" Tamara's smile faltered slightly. "It wasn't easy, Dr. Chen. My high school didn't have the resources for advanced science programs, so I had to teach myself. I spent every free moment at the public library, reading everything I could get my hands on, and when that wasn't enough, I started sneaking into university lectures." Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. "Sneaking into lectures?" Tamara nodded, a mischievous glint in her eye. "I figured if I couldn't afford to attend officially, I'd find another way. I'd slip into the back of lecture halls, absorb everything I could. Sometimes, I'd even stay after to ask questions. Most professors were so impressed by my enthusiasm that they didn't mind." Dr. Chen couldn't help but laugh. "Well, that certainly shows initiative. But Tamara, I have to ask, why Westfield? With your talents, you could have applied to any top university in the country." Tamara's expression grew serious. "Because Westfield has one of the best engineering programs in the nation, but also one of the worst track records when it comes to diversity. I wanted to prove that someone like me belongs here just as much as anyone else." Dr. Chen nodded slowly, a newfound respect evident in her eyes. "Well, Ms. Johnson, I believe you've more than proven that today. Now, let's talk about getting you set up in the program. There's a lot of work ahead of us." As they began to discuss the details, neither of them noticed the figure lingering outside the office door. Dean Whitmore had been about to knock, to apologize for his earlier behavior, when he overheard their conversation. He stepped back, his mind racing with the implications of what he'd just learned. Over the next few weeks, Westfield University found itself in the midst of an unexpected transformation. Word of Tamara's invention spread quickly through the engineering department, and soon students from all backgrounds were clamoring to work with her. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Tamara faced her fair share of challenges, from skeptical professors who questioned her abilities to fellow students who resented her sudden rise to prominence. One afternoon, as Tamara was working late in the lab, she overheard a group of students talking in hushed tones. "I don't get it," one of them said. "How did she even get in here? There's no way she could have developed those inventions on her own." "Maybe she's just a diversity pick," another suggested. "You know how these things work." Tamara felt her hands clench into fists, the familiar anger bubbling up inside her. She was about to confront them when she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Jake, Dean Whitmore's assistant. "Don't let them get to you," he said quietly. "They're just jealous." "Come on, the dean wants to see you." Confused and still seething, Tamara followed Jake to the dean's office. To her surprise, she found not just Dean Whitmore waiting for her, but also Dr. Chen and several other faculty members. "Ms. Johnson," the dean began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "we've asked you here today because we owe you an apology." Tamara blinked in surprise. This was the last thing she had expected. The dean continued, "Your presence here has forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our institution. We've been reviewing our admissions processes, and the results are not flattering." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "What the dean is trying to say, Tamara, is that your case has highlighted systemic issues in how we evaluate and admit students. We've been unintentionally excluding talented individuals like yourself, and that needs to change." Tamara looked around the room, taking in the mix of shame, determination, and hope on the faces before her. "I appreciate your honesty," she said carefully. "But what does this mean exactly?" Dean Whitmore cleared his throat. "It means, Ms. Johnson, that we want your help. We're forming a task force to overhaul our admissions process to ensure that we're truly considering all qualified applicants, regardless of their background, and we'd like you to be a part of it." Tamara felt a surge of emotions, pride, vindication, and a touch of skepticism. "You want my help? After everything that happened?" "Especially because of everything that happened," Dr. Chen interjected. "Your perspective is invaluable, Tamara. You've navigated a system that was stacked against you and succeeded despite the odds. Who better to help us identify and remove those barriers?" Tamara took a deep breath, considering the offer. This was an opportunity to effect real change, to open doors for others like her. But it would also mean shouldering an enormous responsibility, on top of her already demanding studies. "I'll do it," she said finally. "But on one condition." The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "I want to start a mentorship program," Tamara continued, "for high school students from underrepresented backgrounds who are interested in STEM fields. We can't just wait for them to find their way here. We need to actively reach out and show them that they belong in places like Westfield." The tension in the room broke as smiles spread across the faces of the faculty members. Dean Whitmore nodded, looking both relieved and genuinely impressed. "I think that's an excellent idea, Mrs. Johnson. We'd be happy to support such an initiative." As the meeting wrapped up and people began to file out of the office, Dr. Chen pulled Tamara aside. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just an exceptionally bright student," she said quietly. "But I'm starting to realize you might be exactly what this institution needs to drag itself into the 21st century." Tamara smiled, feeling a mix of pride and determination. "Thank you, Dr. Chen, but this is just the beginning. We have a lot of work ahead of us." As she left the office, Tamara couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in just a few short weeks. She had arrived at Westfield hoping to prove herself, but now she found herself in a position to change the very system that had almost rejected her. She thought of all the other brilliant minds out there, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for a chance to shine. With a renewed sense of purpose, Tamara headed back to her dorm. She had a mentorship program to plan, a task force to contribute to, and, oh yeah, a world-changing invention to perfect. The road ahead would be challenging, but Tamara Johnson was ready. After all, changing the world was what she did best. The following months at Westfield University were a whirlwind of activity for Tamara. Between her coursework, research, the admissions task force, and setting up the mentorship program, she barely had time to catch her breath. But despite the challenges, she felt more alive than ever before. One crisp autumn afternoon, Tamara stood before a group of wide-eyed high school students in the university's main lecture hall. It was the first official event of her mentorship program, and she could feel the nervous energy radiating from the teens. "I know exactly how you're feeling right now," Tamara began, her voice strong and clear. "You're looking around at this big, fancy university and wondering if you really belong here. Well, let me tell you something. You do. Each and every one of you has the potential to change the world, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As she spoke, Tamara couldn't help but notice one girl in particular, sitting in the front row, leaning forward with an intensity that reminded Tamara of herself at that age, was a young Latina student. The girl's hand shot up as soon as Tamara finished speaking. Yes? Tamara called on her, smiling encouragingly. The girl stood up, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength as she spoke. My name is Sofia Rodriguez. I want to be an engineer like you. But my guidance counselor told me I should focus on more realistic goals. How do you deal with people who don't believe in you? Tamara felt a pang in her chest, remembering all too well the sting of such dismissals. She stepped closer to Sofia, her gaze sweeping across the room to include all the students. Sofia and everyone else here, listen closely, Tamara said, her voice low and intense. There will always be people who try to limit you, who try to put you in a box based on what you look like or where you come from. But here's the secret. Their limitations are not your limitations. Their lack of imagination does not define your potential. She paused, letting her words sink in. When someone tells you that your dreams are unrealistic, what they're really saying is that they can't imagine someone like you achieving those dreams. And that, my friends, is their problem, not yours. Your job is not to fit into their narrow view of the world, but to expand it. Sofia's eyes were shining as she nodded, sitting back down with a newfound determination in her posture. Tamara saw similar expressions of inspiration on the faces of the other students, and she felt a surge of pride. This, she realized, was why she had fought so hard to create this program. As the session wound down and the students began to file out, chattering excitedly among themselves, Tamara noticed Dean Whitmore standing at the back of the hall. She excused herself from the group of students surrounding her and made her way over to him. Dean Whitmore, she greeted him, her tone cautious but not unfriendly. Their relationship had been strained since that first confrontation, but they had developed a wary respect for each other through their work on the task force. The dean nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. Ms. Johnson, that was quite an inspiring speech you gave there. Tamara raised an eyebrow. Thank you. I hope it wasn't too unrealistic for your tastes. Whitmore had the grace to look embarrassed. I deserve that, he admitted. Actually, that's part of why I'm here. I wanted to let you know that the Board of Trustees has reviewed our proposal for changes to the admissions process. They've approved it, along with additional funding for your mentorship program. Tamara's eyes widened in surprise. That's fantastic news. But why are you telling me this personally? Couldn't it have waited for our next task force meeting? The dean shifted uncomfortably. Because, Ms. Johnson, I owe you an apology. A real one. Not just the official one we gave before. When you first came to my office, I saw you as a problem to be managed, not as the incredibly talented and determined young woman you are. I let my preconceptions cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I nearly cost this university a valuable asset. Tamara was stunned into silence. This was the last thing she had expected from the usually stuffy dean. Whitmore continued, Watching you with these students today, seeing the impact you're already having, it's made me realize how many other brilliant minds we might have turned away over the years. I want you to know that I'm committed to doing better, to making Westfield a place where every student, regardless of their background, has the opportunity to excel. Tamara studied the dean's face, searching for any sign of insincerity. Finding none, she nodded slowly. Thank you, Dean Whitmore. That means a lot to hear, and I'm glad we'll be able to expand the mentorship program. These kids deserve every chance we can give them. As they talked, neither of them noticed Sofia lingering nearby, listening intently to their conversation. The young girl's eyes were wide with realization as she witnessed this exchange between her new mentor and the university dean. Later that evening, as Tamara was packing up her things in the lab, she was surprised to see Sofia timidly approaching her. Ms. Johnson, Sofia said hesitantly, can I talk to you for a minute? Tamara smiled warmly. Of course, Sofia. And please, call me Tamara. What's on your mind? Sofia took a deep breath. I overheard you talking to the dean earlier, about how he almost didn't let you in because of what you look like. She paused, her eyes filling with a mixture of anger and determination. Does that happen a lot? Even at places like this? Tamara sighed, setting down her bag and giving Sofia her full attention. Unfortunately, yes, It happens more often than most people realize or want to admit. But Sophia, that's exactly why what we're doing is so important. Every time one of us succeeds, every time we refuse to be limited by someone else's prejudices, we make it a little easier for the next person. Sophia nodded, her jaw set in a determined line. I want to help, not just with my own studies, but I want to help other kids like me, kids who might not even know that this is possible for them. Can you teach me how to do that? Tamara felt a swell of emotion in her chest. This, she realized, was how real change happened, not just through policy changes and programs, but through individuals inspired to lift others up alongside them. Sophia, Tamara said, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder, I would be honored to teach you. In fact, how would you like to be my assistant for the mentorship program? You could help me reach out to more schools, maybe even start a peer mentoring initiative. Sophia's face lit up with excitement. Really? You'd let me do that? Tamara nodded, grinning. Absolutely. In fact, I think you just gave me an idea for how we can expand the program even further. How do you feel about public speaking? As they began to discuss plans for the future, Tamara couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. She had come to Westfield to prove herself, to change the system from within. But now she realized that her true impact might be in inspiring the next generation to dream even bigger, to push even further. The path ahead was still challenging. There would be more obstacles, more people who would try to stand in their way. But looking at Sophia's eager face, Tamara knew that they were building something powerful, a network of support, inspiration, and determination that would continue to grow long after she had graduated. As they left the lab together, chatting animatedly about their plans, Tamara caught sight of their reflections in a window. She saw not just herself and Sophia, but the shadows of countless others who would follow in their footsteps. And she knew, with a certainty that filled her with purpose, that this was only the beginning of their journey. The future, Tamara realized, was not just something to be invented in a lab. It was something to be built, relationship by relationship, dream by dream, until the world finally caught up with the vision of equality and opportunity that she and Sophia, and all those like them, carried in their hearts. As the seasons changed and Tamara's first year at Westfield drew to a close, the impact of her presence on campus had become undeniable. The mentorship program was thriving, with Sophia proving to be an invaluable asset in its expansion. The admissions task force had implemented several key changes, and early data showed a marked increase in applications from underrepresented groups. But with success came new challenges. As Tamara's profile rose, so did the scrutiny she faced. One warm spring afternoon, she found herself in Dr. Chen's office, poring over the latest results from her clean energy research. These results are promising, Tamara, Dr. Chen said, her eyes bright with excitement. If these efficiency rates hold up in larger-scale tests, your solar storage system could revolutionize the entire industry. Tamara nodded, a mix of pride and anxiety churning in her stomach. That's what I'm hoping for. But Dr. Chen, I'm worried about the conference next month. There's been so much hype around this project, and I know there are people just waiting for me to fail. Dr. Chen's expression softened. Tamara, you've faced skeptics and naysayers before. What's really bothering you? Tamara sighed, slumping in her chair. It's just, I feel like I'm carrying the weight of every Black woman in STEM on my shoulders. If I succeed, it's a victory for all of us. But if you fail, you'll get up and try again, Dr. Chen said firmly. Just like any other scientist, your work stands on its own merits, Tamara. Don't let anyone make you feel like you have to be perfect just to belong here. Before Tamara could respond, there was a knock at the door. Jake, Dean Whitmore's assistant, poked his head in, looking unusually flustered. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Tamara, you need to see this, he said, holding out his tablet. Tamara took it, her heart sinking as she read the headline on the screen. Diversity or deception? Questions raised about Westfield Prodigy's credentials. The article, published in a prominent science blog, cast doubt on Tamara's achievements, suggesting that her inventions might have been the work of others, and that Westfield had lowered its standards to admit her, The comments section was a cesspool of racist and sexist remarks. "This is ridiculous," Dr. Chen fumed, reading over Tamara's shoulder. "These accusations are completely baseless. We need to issue a statement immediately." But Tamara barely heard her. She was lost in a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, and a creeping sense of self-doubt that she thought she had left behind. What if they were right? What if she didn't really belong here? "Tamara?" Dr. Chen's voice cut through her spiral of negative thoughts. "Tamara, look at me. This changes nothing. Your work speaks for itself. We'll fight this." Tamara nodded numbly, but inside, she felt like she was drowning. As she left Dr. Chen's office, the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before her, whispers and stares following her every step. She was so lost in her thoughts that she almost collided with Sophia, who was waiting outside the engineering building. "Tamara!" Sophia exclaimed, her face lighting up. But her smile quickly faded as she took in Tamara's expression. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Tamara hesitated, not wanting to burden the younger girl with her problems. But Sophia's concerned gaze broke through her defenses. "Come on," Tamara said with a sigh. "Let's take a walk." As they strolled across the campus quad, Tamara filled Sophia in on the article and its implications. Sophia listened intently, her expression growing increasingly indignant. But that's not fair," she burst out when Tamara finished. "How can they say those things about you? Don't they know how hard you've worked?" Tamara gave a bitter laugh. "Fairness doesn't always enter into it, Sophia. Sometimes, no matter how hard you work or how much you achieve, there will always be people who think you don't belong." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing this harsh reality. Then, to Tamara's surprise, the younger girl's face set in a determined expression. "Then we'll just have to prove them wrong," Sophia declared, again and again, until they can't ignore us anymore. Tamara felt a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. "We?" Sophia nodded emphatically. "Of course, we. You didn't think you were in this alone, did you? Everyone in the mentorship program, we all look up to you. And not just because you're smart or successful, but because you've shown us that it's possible to fight back against this kind of prejudice and win." As Sophia spoke, Tamara felt her resolve strengthening. She thought of all the young faces in her mentorship program, all the dreams and potential that were at stake. "You're right," Tamara said, straightening her shoulders. "We can't let them win. Not when we've come this far." Over the next few weeks, Tamara threw herself into preparations for the upcoming conference with renewed determination. She worked tirelessly, refining her presentation and running additional tests to ensure her data was bulletproof. The day of the conference arrived, and Tamara found herself standing backstage, heart pounding as she waited to be introduced. As she peered out at the packed auditorium, she spotted familiar faces, Dr. Chen, Dean Whitmore, and to her surprise, Sophia and several other students from the mentorship program. As Tamara stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her, she took a deep breath and began her presentation. She spoke with passion and clarity, laying out the technical details of her invention and its potential impact on the clean energy sector. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, to her relief and joy, the auditorium erupted in applause. As she fielded questions from the audience, Tamara felt a surge of confidence. She knew her stuff, and no amount of prejudice or doubt could take that away from her. After the presentation, as Tamara made her way through the crowd of congratulatory colleagues and industry representatives, she overheard a conversation that made her pause. "I have to admit, I had my doubts when I read that article," a middle-aged man in a suit was saying to his companion. "But after seeing her present, well, I think Westfield might have found themselves a real game changer." His companion, an older woman, nodded in agreement. "It's not often you see that level of innovation from someone so young. I think we'll all be hearing a lot more from Ms. Johnson in the years to come." Tamara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had done it. She had proven herself not just to Westfield, but to the wider scientific community. As the conference wound down, Tamara found herself surrounded by her support system. Dr. Chen beaming with pride, Dean Whitmore looking both impressed and slightly abashed, and Sophia practically bouncing with excitement. "You were amazing," Sophia gushed. Did you see how everyone was hanging on your every word? You totally showed those doubters." Tamara laughed, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she said, looking around at the group. "Your support means everything." Dean Whitmore cleared his throat. "Ms. Johnson, I owe you yet another apology. When that article came out, I'm ashamed to admit that I wondered if we had made a mistake. But seeing you up there today, I've never been more certain that you belong at Westfield. In fact, I think it's Westfield that needs to work on belonging to students like you." Dr. Chen nodded in agreement. "Tamara, you've not only proven yourself as a scientist today, but you've also shown everyone here the importance of diversity in STEM. Your perspective, your experiences, they've led you to innovations that others might never have considered." As they talked, Tamara noticed a group of young girls, mostly Black and Latina, hovering nearby, clearly wanting to approach but too shy to do so. She smiled and waved them over. "Are you really a college student?" one of the girls asked in awe. "And you invented all that stuff?" Tamara knelt down to be at eye level with the girls. "I am, and I did. And you know what? There's absolutely no reason why each of you couldn't do the same thing, or something even more amazing." As she spoke to the girls, Tamara felt a sense of coming full circle. She remembered being their age, dreaming of a future in science but unsure if there was a place for her. Now, she was not only living that dream but helping to pave the way for others. The road ahead would still have its challenges. There would be more doubters, more obstacles to overcome. But looking at the eager faces of these young girls, at Sophia's proud grin, at the respect in the eyes of her mentors and peers, Tamara knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had come to Westfield to prove herself, but in the process, she had started a movement that would continue to grow, to challenge prejudices, and to show the world the incredible innovations that could arise when all voices were heard and all talents were nurtured. As the conference hall slowly emptied, Tamara stood surrounded by her growing circle of supporters and protégés, feeling a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. The future of STEM was changing, and she was helping to shape it. One invention, one mentee, one shattered stereotype at a time. The success of Tamara's conference presentation marked a turning point, not just for her, but for Westfield University as a whole. As news of her groundbreaking research spread, the institution found itself thrust into the spotlight as a beacon of innovation and inclusivity in STEM. But with greater visibility came greater scrutiny, and not everyone was happy with the changes taking place at Westfield. As Tamara began her sophomore year, she found herself navigating an increasingly complex landscape of academic politics and public opinion. One crisp autumn morning, Tamara arrived at her lab to find Dr. Chen waiting for her, a troubled expression on her face. "Tamara, we need to talk, Doctor," Chen said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "The Board of Trustees is meeting next week to discuss the future of the Exceptional Student Program and the new admissions policies. There's significant pressure from some alumni and donors to roll back the changes we've made." Tamara felt her heart sink. But why? We've shown that these programs work. The quality of research coming out of Westfield has never been higher. Dr. Chen sighed. "Change is hard, Tamara. There are those who believe that by focusing on diversity, we're somehow lowering our standards. They don't understand that diversity is what's driving our innovation." Tamara leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. "So what do we do?" "The board has requested that you speak at the meeting," Dr. Chen replied. "They want to hear directly from you about the impact of these programs. This could be our chance to secure their long-term support, but it's also a risk. The opposition will be looking for any weakness, any reason to discredit you and what you represent." Tamara nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "I'll do it, but I can't do it alone. We need to show them that this isn't just about me, it's about all the students who've benefited from these changes." Over the next week, Tamara worked tirelessly to prepare for the board meeting. She reached out to students in the mentorship program, gathering their stories and data on their achievements. She collaborated with Sophia, who had become an eloquent advocate for diversity in STEM in her own right, to craft a compelling narrative. The day of the board meeting arrived, and Tamara found herself standing before a room full of stern-faced trustees, many of whom looked skeptical before she'd even begun to speak. "Distinguished members of the board," Tamara began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I stand before you today not just as an individual student, but as a representative of a movement that is transforming Westfield University and the future of STEM itself." As she spoke, Tamara wove together statistics, personal stories, and a vision for the future that was both ambitious and grounded in real results. She highlighted the achievements of students from diverse backgrounds who had thrived under the new policies, the groundbreaking research that had emerged from cross-cultural collaborations, and the growing reputation of Westfield as a leader in inclusive innovation. By embracing diversity, Tamara concluded, Westfield isn't just doing the right thing morally, it's securing its position at the forefront of scientific advancement. The challenges facing our world are complex and multifaceted. To solve them, we need the brightest minds from every background, bringing their unique perspectives and experiences to bear. As Tamara finished speaking, the room erupted into a mix of applause and heated discussion. She could see that while some board members were nodding in agreement, others remained unconvinced. One particularly vocal opponent, an older alumnus named Richard Thornton, stood up. "This all sounds very noble, Ms. Johnson," he said, his tone dismissive. "But the fact remains that Westfield's rankings have slipped since implementing these new policies. How do you explain that?" Tamara felt a flash of anger, but she kept her composure. "With all due respect, Mr. Thornton, those rankings are based on outdated metrics that don't capture the full picture of what we're achieving here. If you look at the number of patents filed, the amount of grant funding received, and the real-world impact of our research, you'll see that Westfield is actually performing better than ever." Before Thornton could respond, another voice chimed in. To Tamara's surprise, it was Dean Whitmore. "If I may," the dean said, standing up. "I was once skeptical of these changes myself, but having seen the results firsthand, I can attest that Ms. Johnson is correct. Our focus on diversity hasn't lowered our standards, it's raised them. We're attracting talent that we would have overlooked in the past, and it's making us stronger." The room fell silent as the board members absorbed this. Tamara held her breath, knowing that this moment could determine the fate of everything she and her allies had worked for. Finally, the chair of the board spoke. "Thank you, Ms. Johnson, Dean Whitmore. This has certainly given us a lot to consider. We'll need time to deliberate, but I believe I speak for many of us when I say that you've made a compelling case for the continuation and expansion of these programs." As the meeting adjourned, Tamara felt a mix of relief and lingering anxiety. They had made their case, but the final decision was still up in the air. Outside the boardroom, she found Sophia waiting for her, along with a group of students from the mentorship program. Their faces were a mix of hope and concern. "How did it go?" Sophia asked eagerly. Tamara gave a tired smile. "I think we made an impact, but it's not over yet. They still need to vote." One of the younger students, a freshman named Marcus, spoke up. "Whatever happens, we've got your back, Tamara. You've shown us what's possible. We're not going to let them take that away." Tamara felt a surge of emotion at the determined faces looking back at her. This, she realized, was the true measure of what they'd accomplished. Not just individual success, but a community united in pursuit of a more inclusive future. The next few days were tense as they waited for the board's decision. Tamara threw herself into her research, trying to distract herself from the weight of uncertainty. But everywhere she went on campus, she could feel the undercurrent of anticipation. Finally, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, Tamara received a message asking her to come to the president's office immediately. With her heart pounding, she made her way across campus, unsure of what to expect. When she arrived, she found not just the president, but also Dean Whitmore, Dr. Chen, and several board members, including the chair. Their expressions were unreadable. "Mrs. Johnson," the president began, "the board has reached a decision regarding the exceptional student program and our admissions policies." Tamara held her breath, bracing herself for whatever came next. The president's serious expression suddenly broke into a smile. I'm pleased to inform you that not only will these programs continue, but the board has voted to significantly increase their funding and scope. Your presentation, along with the undeniable results we've seen, has convinced even our most skeptical members that this is the right path forward for Westfield. The room erupted into congratulations and handshakes. Tamara felt dizzy with relief and joy. They had done it. The changes they'd fought so hard for were here to stay. As the celebration died down, the chair of the board approached Tamara. "Ms. Johnson, we owe you a debt of gratitude. You've opened our eyes to the incredible potential that exists when we truly embrace diversity in academia. But I hope you realize that this is just the beginning. We'll be looking to you and your peers to help guide Westfield into this new era." Tamara nodded, feeling the weight of this new responsibility but also the excitement of the possibilities it presented. "Thank you, sir. I promise we won't let you down." As she left the office, her mind was already racing with ideas for how to build on this victory. The mentorship program could be expanded to reach even more underserved communities. They could establish partnerships with other universities to create a network of support for diverse STEM students across the country. The possibilities seemed endless. Outside, the rain had stopped, and a rainbow arched across the sky. Tamara couldn't help but smile at the symbolism. They had weathered the storm, and now a brighter, more colorful future lay ahead. She pulled out her phone to share the news with Sophia and the others. As she did, she caught sight of her reflection in the screen. The face looking back at her was older, wiser, and more determined than the young woman who had first arrived at Westfield with dreams of changing the world. She had changed the world, Tamara realized. Maybe not all at once, and maybe not as much as she'd hoped, but she had set something in motion that would continue to grow and evolve long after she'd graduated. As she walked across the campus quad, Tamara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fight for equality and representation in STEM was far from over, but they had proven that change was possible. And with each new student who found their place at Westfield, with each breakthrough that came from a diversity of perspectives, they were building a future where talent and innovation knew no boundaries. The journey ahead would be challenging, but Tamara Johnson was ready. After all, changing the world was what she did best. 5 years had passed since Tamara's pivotal presentation to the Board of Trustees. As she stood at the podium, preparing to deliver the commencement speech for Westfield's graduating class, she couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed and how much work still lay ahead. The auditorium was packed, a sea of faces representing a diversity that would have been unimaginable when Tamara first arrived at Westfield. In the front row, she spotted familiar faces. Dr. Chen, beaming with pride, Dean Whitmore, who had become an unexpected ally in the fight for inclusivity, and Sophia, now a junior and president of the Student STEM Diversity Alliance. Fellow graduates, esteemed faculty, and honored guests, Tamara began, her voice strong and clear. When I first came to Westfield, I thought my greatest challenge would be proving that I belonged here. What I've learned over the past 4 years is that belonging isn't something to be proven. It's something to be created, together. As she spoke, Tamara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The initial rejection, the struggles, the triumphs, and the ongoing work of transforming Westfield into a truly inclusive institution. Our time at Westfield has coincided with a period of unprecedented change, not just for this university, but for the entire field of STEM, she continued. We've seen breakthroughs in clean energy, advancements in artificial intelligence, and innovations in medicine that were once thought impossible. And at every step, diverse voices and perspectives have been driving that progress. Tamara paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. She saw determination, hope, and a readiness to take on the challenges that lay ahead. But our work is far from over, she said, her tone growing serious. As we leave these halls and enter the workforce, we will face new obstacles, new prejudices, and new attempts to undermine the progress we've made. It's up to us to stand firm, to continue pushing for change, and to create spaces where everyone's talents can flourish. In the audience, Tamara spotted Marcus, the once shy freshman who had stood by her during the Board of Trustees controversy. Now a confident senior, he was headed to a prestigious tech company determined to bring the lessons of inclusivity he'd learned at Westfield into the corporate world. To my fellow graduates of color, to women in STEM, to every student who has ever felt like an outsider, I want you to know that your presence here today is revolutionary, Tamara continued, her voice filled with emotion. Every obstacle you've overcome, every stereotype you've shattered, has paved the way for those who will come after us. Never forget the power of your example. She turned her gaze to the section where the faculty sat. Cease. And to our mentors, our professors, and yes, even those who once doubted us, thank you. Thank you for being willing to learn, to grow, and to challenge your own preconceptions. The changes we've seen at Westfield are a testament to what can happen when institution and individuals alike commit to real, lasting change. As Tamara spoke, she couldn't help but think of the journey ahead. Her groundbreaking work in clean energy storage had attracted attention from major tech companies and government agencies alike. She had job offers that would have seemed like impossible dreams just a few years ago. But more than that, she had a platform, a chance to continue pushing for change on an even larger scale. As we leave Westfield today, we carry with us not just degrees, but a responsibility, Tamara said, her voice rising with passion. A responsibility to create workplaces, research labs, and institutions that reflect the full spectrum of human talent and experience. Because the challenges facing our world, climate change, disease, food security, these are challenges that require all of us working together, bringing our unique perspectives to bear. In the audience, Dean Whitmore nodded solemnly. He had become one of Westfield's most vocal advocates for diversity in STEM, using his position to challenge other universities to follow their lead. It hadn't always been an easy road, but the results, in terms of research output, grant funding, and student success, spoke for themselves. I stand before you today not as an exception, but as proof of what's possible when we break down barriers and give everyone a fair shot, Tamara continued. My story is not unique. Look around you. Every graduate here has a story of perseverance, of overcoming obstacles, of proving the doubters wrong. That is the true strength of Westfield, and it's the strength we'll carry with us into the world. As she neared the end of her speech, Tamara's thoughts turned to the future, not just her own, but the future of STEM itself. The partnerships she had helped forge between Westfield and historically black colleges and universities, the mentorship programs that were now being replicated across the country, the changing face of scientific conferences and academic journals. It was progress, real and tangible, but it was also just the beginning. As we go forth from this place, let us remember that our greatest strength lies in our diversity, Tamara said, her voice ringing out across the auditorium. That innovation flourishes when we bring together different perspectives, experiences, and ways of thinking. And that the future of STEM, indeed, the future of our world, depends on our ability to create spaces where everyone can thrive. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces one last time. Class of 2029, we stand at a crossroads. The path ahead will not be easy. There will be those who resist change, who cling to old prejudices and outdated ways of thinking. But I have faith in each and every one of you, faith in the power of our collective voices, and faith in the undeniable truth that diversity drives innovation. As Tamara delivered her final words, she felt a sense of completion, but also of new beginnings. So let us go forth from Westfield not just as engineers and scientists and mathematicians, but as champions of inclusivity, as breakers of barriers, and as architects of a more equitable future. The world is waiting for us. Let's show them what we can do, together. The auditorium erupted in applause as Tamara stepped back from the podium. As she made her way back to her seat, she was engulfed in a sea of hugs, handshakes, and words of gratitude from her fellow graduates. She caught Sophia's eye in the crowd, seeing in her young protégé's face the same fire and determination that had driven her own journey. After the ceremony, as graduates and families mingled on the quad, Tamara found herself approached by a young black girl, no more than 12 years old. The girl's eyes were wide with admiration as she clutched a program with Tamara's picture on it. "Ms. Johnson," the girl said hesitantly, I want to be like you when I grow up. Do you think I can do it? Tamara knelt down to the girl's level, her heart swelling with emotion. What's your name? She asked gently. Amara, the girl replied. Well, Amara, Tamara said, her voice filled with conviction. I don't just think you can do it. I know you can. And you know what? You might even do things I haven't even dreamed of yet. The future belongs to you, and it's going to be amazing. As Amara beamed and ran back to her family, Tamara stood up, her gaze sweeping across the bustling quad. She saw students of all backgrounds celebrating together, faculty members engaged in animated discussions with graduates and their families, and a sense of possibility hanging in the air. In that moment, Tamara realized that her journey at Westfield had been about so much more than proving she belonged. It had been about creating a space where everyone belonged, about challenging a system and changing it from within. And while there was still much work to be done, she knew that she, and the diverse, brilliant community she had helped foster, were ready for the challenge. As the sun began to set on her time at Westfield, Tamara Johnson stood tall, her heart full of gratitude for the past and excitement for the future. She had arrived as a student with dreams of changing the world. She was leaving as a leader, an innovator, and a catalyst for change. But more than that, she was leaving as part of a movement, a growing wave of diverse voices in STEM that would continue to push boundaries, shatter stereotypes, and drive innovation for years to come. And as she took her first steps into the next chapter of her life, Tamara knew that this was only the beginning. The world of STEM was changing, becoming richer and more vibrant with each passing day. And Tamara Johnson, once rejected but now triumphant, was helping to lead the way.